clandestine interview with an editor staged in a hotel room in Houston, Texas. Well, what resulted from that meeting was a garden variety cover story in which the tabloid's prize was getting Cosby to thank the paper for helping to nail his son's killer in between veiled intimations of shakedowns and how his accusers, specifically Constant, just wanted his money. Not surprisingly, that particular issue was a loser on the newsstand. Remember, I was an eyewitness to the National Enquirer covering for all kinds of celebrity misdeeds in my year in hell at the National Enquirer. Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and now serial rapist Bill Cosby. And now, my colleague, Robin Mizrahi, a former senior reporter at the Enquirer, comes with this, and this is from thelatest.com. Back in 2005, I had a front row seat to the heavy machinery that protected the so-called America's Dad and successfully dissembled his decades-long sexual criminality. As a senior reporter for the National Enquirer, I tried to report the story of a woman I'll identify as Deborah, who told me she was 15 years old when Cosby assaulted her in the 1980s. Well, the shocking headline wrote itself. Bill Cosby is a secret rapist. It would have been the first such story ever published. Deborah, a sweet, bright, and articulate woman, told me about the day Cosby lured her to her Playboy mansion. It was difficult to hear and to watch her face as she relived her trauma. I had never had sex before, never even seen an erection. Suddenly, his pants were down and he was masturbating. He took my hand to touch it, but I was too scared, so I just watched him do it. Afterward, he drove me home. I didn't dare tell anyone. As with any source in a possibly litigious story, Deborah was polygraphed and she passed with flying colors. I emailed a comment letter to Cosby's representatives. Within an hour, a letter arrived from his legal team threatening a $50 million lawsuit if we published the story. The National Enquirer made the decision to bury the story in exchange for a one-on-one softball interview with the TV legend. I was livid and deeply disappointed. I had to explain to Deborah that Cosby, with the help of his powerful defense machine, got the better of her for a second time. Re-victimization. Even though I was well versed in the power of celebrity, I was appalled that the fame and money can give a celebrity such control and immunity. Attorney Tamara Green, she was 58 back then when I interviewed her, a former fashion model and ex-wife of the Wild Bunch screenwriter Waylon Green, claims the comedian drugged and forced himself on her over 40 years ago. In response to comments by the Philadelphia district attorney that she perceived as indicating the charges against Cosby were in doubt, Green announced that she had the names of 3 other women who would testify to almost identical stories of being drugged and assaulted. Green also claimed a young woman by the name of Paige Young was so distraught over a similar sexual assault by Cosby that she was driven to suicide. She capped herself in the head. Paige Young, Daily Mail exclusive 2014. Passed around by Bill Cosby, Hugh Hefner, and dozens of Hollywood honchos. This is the Playboy Playmate of the Month who felt so used and abused by the most powerful leading men, she took a gun and shot herself in the head. There are now scores of victims feeling some sense of vindication with the Cosby guilty verdict, but Keep in mind, there are also bodies buried. Paige Young being one of them. You know, there's an apocryphal story allegedly told by James Caan about the regularity of comatose women being hauled out of Cosby's room at the Playboy Mansion. And I think Jimmy Caan might want to speak to that. Nah, probably not. Back to the second victim I interviewed, attorney Tamara Green. Quote, do I want everybody to know that he, Cosby, had his dirty paws all over me? No, Green told the Philadelphia Daily News. But the attorney decided to come forward with her sordid story in defense of Cosby's Canadian accuser. Green says that if it is her, quote, civic duty and moral obligation to come forward so that the Canadian woman would not be intimidated by the Cosby legal camp, nor would she be alone should her charges make it to the Philadelphia courtroom. Green claims that while she was a model doing cosmetics and Coca-Cola commercials in the early 70s, Cosby employed her to help him open a private Los Angeles nightclub. Suffering from flu symptoms one day, she decided to call in sick. Cosby invited her to lunch at the club that day. Maybe you'll feel better, Green says, he told her. When she arrived at the club, she reports that Cosby offered her some pills that she says he told her were the cold medicine Contact. 10 minutes after taking the pills, she reports that she was, quote, really stoned, I mean smashed. Cosby then offered to drive her home. When they got to her apartment, she alleges that he attacked her by attempting to take off her clothes. Quote, I started fighting him and he's kissing me, peeling off my clothes, she said. After Green started screaming and threatened to throw a lamp through her window to get someone's attention, she says Cosby finally let her go. And as a final indignity, Green alleges that he dropped two $100 bills on her end table and left. That infuriated me, she said. Sound familiar, by the way? Offering money?
Yeah.
Hello, Stormy Daniels. Sean Upshaw, the mother of Cosby's discredited love child, Autumn Jackson, also told the National Enquirer, I was put in the same position with Bill. When Upshaw was visiting Cosby at his Beverly Hills rented mansion in the 70s, she claims that he slipped her debilitating drugs into a drink he prepared for her. She then claims that the drink looked strange to her and she didn't want to drink it. But Cosby insisted she finish it. She immediately started feeling out of sorts. Quote, I knew definitely that I had been heavily drugged, she says. Although it was the last thing she remembered of the evening. Upshaw claims that Cosby put her to bed and she awoke the next morning, quote, knowing I'd had sex during my sleep. In my reporting, I fielded reports from numerous women, including Joan Tarshish, including Tamara Green, and they all had similar stories to tell, and honestly, I had no reason to doubt them. An airline attendant claims that Cosby flew her and her aspiring actor brother to Las Vegas and put them up in a luxury suite, promising to share his professional contacts with them. The weekend, she claims, quickly devolved into a wash of booze and drugs, and the stewardess says she had to repeatedly fend off Cosby's inappropriate and aggressive sexual advances in 2014. Proto-supermodel Janice Dickinson, adding her name to the afflicted, a charge she made in her 2002 autobiography, No Lifeguard on Duty, but now claims she was forced to remove those allegations when Cosby's legal team pressured publisher HarperCollins, Cosby's lawyers, both then and now, refused to comment further.
Talked about Hollywood pitbull lawyer Marty Singer. Well, Marty Singer was representing Cosby at the time I was writing this story, which now sits at the Daily Beast. I warned you about Bill Cosby in 2007. Marty Singer was doing intel on one of the more prominent Cosby accusers, Janice Dickinson, supermodel actress, reality show star, whatever she's doing to earn her keep. I've got no problem with that. I also have no problem with her accusation. You talk about pushback. They hired a private investigator I work often with until he got thrown in jail about 8 months ago on an unrelated thing we can discuss at another time. But Dan O'Hanks was the private investigator that Hollywood lawyer Marty Singer hired to try and destroy Janice Dickinson.
That guy sounded familiar.
Yeah, I think this is great. It gives me a chance to give my voice a rest when I can pull a clip from another show, which was, by the way, that was Rob Breckenridge in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He jumped right on me right after the verdict, and I got on the air with him and talked to him about it. It's in the small world department. We can go back a few episodes, and if you've been a faithful listener to the Gray Zone, you'll remember watching The Detectives where I discussed Dan O'Hanks. Well, yeah, Marty Singer had hired him to dig up dirt on Janice Dickinson to try and frame her as being a liar. Welcome to Hollywood, folks.
One of the scummiest things in the trial during the Cosby arguments this go round was just incredible. He had a man and a woman lawyer, and the woman lawyer was just the quotes that she was tossing out, the comments that she was making, judging these women were just vicious.
Attack, attack, attack. Well, guess what? Attack lawyers meet the Me Too movement. Boy, did they fuck that one up. And Tom Mesereau, the marquee attorney behind that, he fell asleep for a half an hour while they were doing a readback during the trial.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
So, convicted rapist Bill Cosby has long existed in a bubble. Well, you don't create movies like Leonard Part 6. A catastrophically conceived 1987 James Bond parody in which the comedian at one point rides an ostrich and not be dangerously out of touch with the world around you or protected behind layers of hierarchy and protocol. With this much darker turn into pathology and predation, it appears... No, it becomes fact that for the entire 45 years of his public life, Cosby has been, in Sean Upshaw's words, quote, an incurable womanizer, an adulterer, and might I add, a serial rapist, actions in which his media champions were complicit. Moreover, the duration and degree of these incidents suggests a parallel history in the White House that, once revealed in all its explosive detail, may render what we now know so far merely the tip of the iceberg.
Mark, always good chatting with you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, and I want to tell you where my gut is taking me real quick.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this at a later date. Trump is next.
Maybe.
Donald Trump is next, man, because he's a sexual predator with a long, long history of fraud, and it's all catching up to him. So watch for that one.
Yeah, well,
Thanks,
that'd be
Rob.
interesting. Mark, appreciate that. There you go. Mark Ebner, HollywoodInterrupted.com, award-winning